We're going to continue this chapter by learning two new rules with exponents. The first rule is for exponents that have a zero, or variables that have a zero for the exponent. It's called zero exponents. If you have a base with an exponent of 0, your answer is always going to be 1. If you have a base that has an exponent of 0, your answer is always going to be 1. Okay, let me prove it to you off to the side. You're not going to have to prove it on your homework, but I want to show you how you get 1. A lot of people think that the answer should be 0. Let me show you why it's 1 and not 0. So let's say we have 2 cubed. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. 2 squared is 4. 2 to the first is 2. Now you're going to notice a pattern here. Every time my exponent gets smaller, over here we divide by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So here 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now look at the pattern on the left side. You see the exponents are getting smaller. This exponent would be 0. And that works for any base. Any base that has an exponent of 0 will always be 1. Okay. I would like you to try 1/2 the power of 0 and -3 with the power of 0. Now let's talk about negative exponents. And that says that if you have a negative exponent, so A stands for any letter, and n stands for a negative integer, a to the negative n is the reciprocal of a to n. So let me show you how this works. Let's say we have x to the negative first power. Whoops. What is happening? Here it goes. Okay, sorry about that. So when you have a negative exponent, you're going to take the reciprocal of that same base with a positive integer. So what you're thinking, this is what you're thinking, this is going to be my thinking phase, is that I'm going to change this to x to the first. I'm just making that positive. And I take the reciprocal of this. Well, turn that into the fraction. The reciprocal of this, if I flip it, would be 1 over x to the first. Okay, let's try it again. Y to the negative third. What you're doing is you're thinking, I'm going to take the reciprocal of y cubed. So the reciprocal of y cubed would be 1 over y cubed. Okay, now this part right here where I'm putting the asterisk above it, do you have to show this? No. You should be able to look at this and say, okay, x to the first. The reciprocal of x to the first is 1 over x to the first. Here. Okay, so I find the reciprocal of y cubed. The reciprocal of y cubed is 1 over y cubed. Let's try 2 to the negative second. What you are thinking is you want to find the reciprocal of 2 squared. So here's 2 squared as a fraction. The reciprocal would be 1 over 2 squared, and you're going to want to simplify so you don't have exponents in this situation. 2 times 2 is 4, so your actual answer is 1/4. And I have one more. 0 to the negative 4th. What you were thinking is that you want to find the reciprocal of 0 to the 4th power. We'll turn that to a fraction and find the reciprocal. The reciprocal would be 1 over 0 to the 4th. Well, 0 times 0 times 0 times 0 is 0. So you have 1 over 0. And in this situation, your answer would be undefined because you cannot divide by 0. You cannot have a 0 in the denominator. Undefined. Whenever you hit 0 in the denominator, your answer is going to be undefined. Okay, I want to go back to this problem right here, this 1/4. I'm going to prove to you that 2 to the negative second is 1/4. I'm going to go back up to this proof up here. I'm going to add to it. So we can see that there's a pattern over here. This next one would be here. And we said the pattern over here was to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Well, 1 divided by 2, 1 divided by 2, isn't that 1/2? The fraction part means division. Okay, here's the next one. 1/2 divided by 2. Well, right here, 1/2 divided by 2, or 2 over 1. We can't divide, instead we multiply by the reciprocal. 1/2 times 1/2. Isn't that 1/4? Isn't that what we got? Take the reciprocal of 2 squared, which is 1 over 2 squared, which is 1/4. Again, this proof stuff over here, you don't necessarily have to do in your homework, but it's good to know how you get this answer when we have negative exponents. Okay. I have 4 for you to try. I would like you to try -8 to the negative second power. 1/2 to the negative third power. X to the negative third. And 1 over 2 to the negative third power. Push pause and try those now. Alright, now we're going to put all of these rules that we have learned together. So let's try -2 to the 5th times -2 to the negative 5th. In the first lesson we learned when we're multiplying with the same base, you add exponents. So I'm thinking 5 plus a -5, which is 0. Anything with the power of 0, we just learned, is 1. Okay, I think that's the shortest way to get there. Are there other ways to do this problem? Yes. You could find the reciprocal of this. You could have the fraction -2 to the 5th over -2 to the 5th. You could subtract your exponents and you would get the same answer. 3 cubed. That whole thing has a -2. Okay, again, in the first lesson we learned when there's a power to a power, you multiply. So here I have 3 to the -6th power. We just learned when you have a negative exponent that you take the reciprocal of 3 to the 6th, which is 1 over 3 to the 6th. And then you're going to simplify, so in your calculator you put 3 to the 6th, which is 729. So 1 over 729. Okay, here's another. 7 cubed over 7 to the 5th. You have to be very careful with these with the subtraction sign. In fact, it might help to write off a little work off to the side. So we learned in the last lesson that when you're dividing the same base, you subtract your exponents. So this says 3 minus 5. Well, 3 minus 5 is a -2. So I'm thinking, let's take the reciprocal of 7 squared, which would be 1 over 49. Again, you have to be very careful with these. X to the -3rd over x to the -4th. It might be helpful to show the subtraction off to the side. -3 minus a -4. A lot of people tend to forget that negative because they just put the subtraction sign in the middle. Keep, switch, opposite. -3 plus 4 is 1. So we get x to the first power, or just x. Okay, negative 3 to the negative 7th. 5 to the negative 3rd to the negative 1st. 6 to the negative 2nd over 6 squared. And x to the negative 6th over x to the negative 6th. Push pause and try those now. Okay, we're going to do the multi-step problems now. Our first problem says 3x to the negative 2nd, y squared, and that whole quantity is cubed. We need to start on the outside and work our way in. So I'm going to distribute the cube to these 3 factors. I get 3 cubed, power to power we multiply, x to the negative 6, power to power again we multiply to the 6. I'm going to kind of take this in 3 steps. First I'm going to work with this 3 cubed, just this right here. 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27. Okay, now I'm thinking about the x to the negative 6. X to the negative 6. Well, I think of x to the 6 and find the reciprocal, which would be 1 over x to the 6. Okay, now all three of these factors are being multiplied, so that's what I'm showing down here. Y to the 6, well that's not negative, so that's just going to stay the way it is. You can see here that I really have 2 factors in the numerator. 27 times 1 is 27 times y to the 6. And in the denominator, I have x to the 6. So when you get to these multi-step problems, if you have a negative exponent, it just tells you that it's going to move into the denominator. So you don't have to show this step. When I look at this step right here, I see that I have 3 cubed. That goes in the numerator because this is positive. This is positive, so it stays in the numerator. This is negative, so it goes into the denominator. Let's try 4x to the negative 2nd, y to the 4th, over 8xy to the 6th. Okay, again, take this in baby steps. I'm going to start with the 4 and the 8. That's a fraction, 4/8. That can be reduced to 1/2. So far I have 1/2. Now I'm working with the x's, negative 2 to 1. This says negative 2 minus 1. Because they're dividing, we subtract. Keep, switch, opposite. It's actually x to the negative 3rd. X to the negative 3rd, if I put it up here and say x to the negative 3rd, then I'd say, oh, I need to find the reciprocal of x cubed, which is 1 over x cubed. Now with the y's, they're dividing, so I'm going to subtract 4 minus 6. 4 minus 6 is a negative 2, so I have y to the negative 2nd power. That's sitting in the numerator right now. Because it's negative, I'm going to put it in the denominator. So my answer is 1 over 2x cubed y squared. Last 2 problems I want you to try by yourself. 2xy to the negative 5th. That whole quantity is cubed. Then try the quantity 2x to the negative 2nd, y to the 5th, over negative 4x squared,